Good afternoon and welcome to Construction Week's Leaders KSA Summit. My name is Ashley Williams. I'm the editor of Construction Week Middle East, and I am very excited to host our two-day conference, which is going to be delving into Saudi Arabia's construction sector, which comes several days after the kingdom celebrated its historic 90th National Day. With huge efforts from the Construction Week team to make sure this event happens, despite not being able to come to Riyadh this year, this conference has been regarded as one of the most anticipated events of the year, as we are set to bring you some of the biggest names contributing towards the $810 billion investment across Saudi Arabia's tourism projects. Saudi Arabia's activities to diversify its economy, reduce its dependency on oil, and develop public service sectors as part of the Vision 2030 agenda has never been so important during these times, especially in light of the COVID-19 situation. These efforts have not gone unnoticed regionally and internationally, as Saudi Arabia has continued building and adapted quickly and efficiently to make sure that these projects are delivered on schedule. We have a real treat in store for you with one of our strongest lineup of speakers, I believe, that we've ever had for our Leaders in Construction conferences since its establishment. So we're going to be bringing you insights from 4 panel discussions across 2 days, including developments in sustainability and gathering the latest construction updates from the Kingdom's Giga projects on day 1. And then closing the conference tomorrow, we're going to be discussing the future of construction and the rise of design and modular construction for the country. It goes without saying that without our sponsors, the caliber of this event would not be possible. They are gold sponsor Mott MacDonald, silver sponsors Cundall, HKA, Reza Gulf Scaffolding, and NEOM, as well as our legal sponsor Reed Smith and our sector regulator Saudi Contractors Authority. So without further ado, let's begin our conference with a very special guest from the Saudi Contractors Authority, who will deliver his keynote speech. Please welcome to the conference the Governor of the Saudi Contractors Authority, Engineer Thabet Al Sawyeed.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Ashley, for the introduction. And it's honestly my pleasure to be with you in this great event. And we are very much pleased in Saudi Contractors Authority to participate and contribute into the success of this event and any event that is highly relevant to the contracting and specifically construction sector. I know we have a lot of great audience who are coming today and tomorrow to attend this event. And I would like to excuse myself from giving a usual formal speech into a little bit of an informal, where I could shed a light a little bit about the Saudi contracting and construction market, where I can talk a little bit more about the market outlook and what is the impact of the Vision 2030 on the sector. And I will be talking a little bit more about the Saudi Contractors Authority and our strategy and roadmap of activity that we'll be doing for the next 5 years. And I will conclude with a little bit of a highlight of what has happened in the past few years and how is that going to hopefully positively impact this sector as we move forward. When we look into Vision 2030, it has translated into a set of construction development imperatives covering housing and residential construction, where we expect, or the target actually set to achieve a 60% of home ownership by 2020 and reach a 70% by 2030, and reduce the ratio between the average unit price and the average annual per capita income to 5 times by 2020. Looking into the energy and power construction, where there has been targets to achieve a 9.5 gigawatts renewable energy capacity by 2020 using solar and wind energy, and around 58.7 gigawatts by 2030. And as well localize a significant portion of the renewable energy value chain in the Saudi economy including, of course, research and development and manufacturing, among other stages. When we look into the civil construction and looking into the targets that were set there, among them is to improve the global ranking into the Logistic Performance Index from 49 to 25, and ensure high quality services such as water, electricity, public transport, and road are properly provided. And in the industrial area, raising the share of non-oil exports in the non-oil GDP from 16% to 50% by 2030, as well as twofold increase in the local pharmaceutical manufacturing. Now, all these great initiatives that were set among the Vision 2030 plans will, of course, translate into a lot of giga projects, and I'm sure probably today and tomorrow during this panel, some of these key initiatives might be discussed in one way or another. But when we look into supporting the housing development as an example, we will be looking to increasing the housing ownership and the development of real estate sector, as well increasing the urban populations, and which of course will translate into some of the housing related projects. And I don't want to drill a little bit more on these details, but when we look into these projects collectively, we can see how ambitious these plans are and what we should expect. And when we translate that into numbers as a part of like the KSA construction market revenue, we anticipate there will be a growth of around 4% annually from 2020 all the way to 2024. And most of these would focus, of course, in the commercial and residential, as well as the energy and utility. However, some other portion would cover the industrial as well as the infrastructure. And when we look into some of the statistics of the sector, at the moment we have around 166,000 registered contractors working in Saudi Arabia. 98.5% of them are in fact small and medium contractors, and they represent actually the major by numbers, but when it comes into the percentage of projects awarded to them, they are not representing an equivalent percentage to similar entities internationally. Those entities, the 166,000, in fact, employs around 3.2 million employees. Around 13% of them, or 14% in fact, are Saudis. The contracting sector represents around 6% out of the Saudi GDP, and in fact, we have some of these contractors who are already classified with MUMRA, around 3,000 of them, and approximately we have more than 4,000 registered with the Saudi Contractors Authority. Now, if we try to look into the trends, we can see the new trends in KSA, are positively impacting the contracting sector, and it is in fact paving the way for, further growth. Some of the key trends that we have seen, or we foresee that's to come in the near future. In fact, some of them are in the Giga projects, and we know there are a lot of initiative based on the vision, and has resulted into some of these Giga projects. We have seen the Red Sea, we have seen Amaala, we have seen a lot of development and a lot of plans for NEOM, Al-Diriyah, and some others as well. And there will be, of course, other Giga projects when you start talking about the oil and gas industry as well, and not to mention, of course, the projects that are part of the regular government plans. And that's where we can see there will be an increment, as that's another part of the vision. There will be an increment in the public sector investment. There are a lot of privatizations plans, and there has been some government stimulus packages, and we have seen also the public investment fund is investing aggressively in the growth of the infrastructure as well, in line of Vision 2030. And there has been also some trends that has been witnessed into alternative financing models, and as we said, the country is increasingly looking to attract inward investment, and there is an increasing number of public-private partnership as well as real estate investment trusts being established in the past few years, and we expect it to continue growing. The last trend that we also can see happening is there will be a lot of focus on the future methods of construction. New technologies like artificial intelligence, 3D printings, building information modeling, Internet of Things, big data, they are being deployed in order to deliver some of these complex projects within time and cost, of course, estimate, which is the interest of any project execution company. Now, these are just to shed a light about some of the analysis that are resulting from the Vision 2030 and the market outlook. In Saudi Contractors Authority, we just finished the development of our strategy for 2020 to 2024. So it should represent, a 5 years plan. And this happened as a result of working with a lot of stakeholders. Some of them are the large contractors, and some of them are the medium. And we look back to, analyze as well, that with local as well as foreign contractors. And we look into the life cycle of any contracting company from the moment they started the business in terms of registration and qualification, establishing their companies, starting the business development, and once they get a project, starting the project planning and mobilization and work execution until they reach a completion of a project and then hand the offer and payments. And we worked heavily with all the public and private sector who are engaged and involved into the the contracting sector, into the ecosystem, from policy setters, from regulators, from delivery arms, whether they are contractors or subcontractors, the design and oversight, the clients themselves, whether they are government or private, and the enablers like financial facilitations, banks, judicial systems, and some of the key partners in the sector. We're looking into the suppliers, the material providers, and service providers, and so on. And sitting with all these key stakeholders, understanding the challenges that they are facing, looking into their aspirations, and also benchmarking what other entities, similar entities in doing internationally, looking into some of the analysis, of the Saudi workforce, the currently available labors in the market, the technologies that are available, the productivity of construction employees in Saudi Arabia, comparing it to the international market, looking into the ease of enforcement. And by the way, Saudi Arabia is the #2 in the ease of enforcement of contracts in the GCC region, and came up with a set of activity that Saudi Contractors Authority is focusing in, whether these activities are in the regulatory side or enablement side, as well as the value-added services. And we just endorsed that from our General Assembly, and now it is on the execution for the next 4 to 5 years. What I wanted to say is, we as Saudi Contractors Authority will continue focusing on these areas. We have a lot of initiative. I wish we have more time, we could talk more about it, but we are talking into the aspect of some of the initiatives that are aim to regulate the market, including the licensing, and of course the establishment or publishing of standard contracts, and that's targeting the smaller and medium. Looking into the industry regulation itself, what are the obstacles and the key challenges, working with our partners from the government as well as the private sector. Looking into contractors rating and availing a very trusted source of evaluation of contractors, easing the relation between a main contractor and subcontractors. And as I said, we have 98.5 smaller and medium, which would like to give them the space and the opportunities. We've put a lot of effort in the regulation side, but also we've put a lot of effort in the services, and some of the activity that we will continue working in is to publish more of the statistics and information that are related in the sector. I have shared some of this information, and by the way, you can visit our website and you will find more of these available free statistics, which can be very useful to you. Conducting more of these events, maybe in the past, we have conducted a lot of conferences and exhibitions that are related to the sector to bridge the gap. Publishing, prices index for the mainly or the heavily used material in the market, and providing training and uplifting of the skills of the contractors. There is a very good set of other services that are also published as part of our roadmap for the strategy. On the value-added services, we look into the consulting services where we provide direct consultations and advisory role to both smaller or larger contractors that are focused and mainly around the contracting related issues and challenges. That will conclude probably more what I can talk about our strategy. Speaking of the past few years, we had a lot to share. We have been doing a lot of effort trying to review some of the we called it the root causes of challenges. We work with the governmental entities to review the governmental tendering process, and that was published last year. And we looked into the governmental contracts, and we reviewed it, and that was also published as well. A lot of effort in the localizations and labor certifications, which I encourage really you to look into some of these material which are available in our website. I tried to take an advantage of this event to keep it a little bit more of an informal, try to share some thoughts, but the event is something that we really thank our organizer for having it and bringing all these stakeholders together. I really wanted to wish my colleagues who are going to be in the panel discussions today and tomorrow all the best of luck. And we really would like to thank Construction Week for organizing this event once again, and we extend our support to them for such valuable events, and wish everybody a very successful and very informative session. And thank you very much for giving us the chance to be with you today.
Thank you very much, Engineer Thabet, for your insight into Saudi Arabia's construction market, and as well as your strategy for the Saudi Contractors Authority. I hope you can stick around to watch the rest of the conference. We're just going to take a quick 2-minute break just to prepare for the first panel discussion of the day. We will see you shortly. Welcome back, everyone. So that brings to us our first panel discussion of the day, which will discuss sustainability in Saudi Arabia's construction sector. Now, our esteemed panel will discuss how sustainability is going to play a key part in Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 agenda by exploring the kingdom's green building movement, from technology advances to commitments for the advancement of net zero carbon buildings. Now, joining us today on our panel is AESG's Managing Director, Saeed Al Abbar, Cundall's Head of Sustainability and Partner, Alan Fogarty, and Katerra's Director of Material Sciences, Mohamed Kassim. Gentlemen, it's great to have you with us today to share your expertise in knowledge of Saudi Arabia's market. Now, I just want to give a brief overview about our panelists today for the consideration of those tuning in from outside the region. I can see there's people tuning in from the likes of Australia and Kenya, which is fantastic to see. So first of all, Saeed Al Abbar founded and built AESG, Middle East and Europe's largest and most respected specialist consultancy, engineering and advisory firms with a core focus on sustainable urban development. He joined Cundall in 1999, where he now heads up Cundall's sustainability group in the UK and the Middle East and North Africa that specialises in low energy and sustainable building design. And finally, Mohamed Kassim has over 27 years of working experience in the construction industry in various capacities, especially construction technology, new materials, and structural design. So now that we're finished with the introductions, let's kick things off. So as we know, sustainability is a fundamental part of how we shape our future across the construction industry. And this session is going to focus particularly on how Saudi Arabia is developing with this. So just to open up the debate, I'd like to get an input from each of you on what you think are some of the key sustainable principles that you look for when you're developing in Saudi Arabia. Saeed, perhaps we could start with you, what you do at AESG.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, so I mean, we're involved through a number of initiatives in the kingdom, from working with a number of the government entities on new policies, regulations, and strategies. So really, sort of that overarching element, but also working on some of the key projects such as Qiddiya, Diriyah, Red Sea, and Amaala, and a number of others. So we've got some sort of good insights there in terms of the direction that things are going. And what I can say is that we're seeing a lot of leadership from sort of the government and the Giga projects and large projects to really sort of drive the agenda. You see in any market or any market shift, particularly towards sustainable development, it does require, really strong top-down leadership to particularly in our region for that to move. And we're seeing that specifically, now in the kingdom. And, some of the things we're seeing a trend towards now is definitely around the move towards sort of net zero. We are seeing a number of projects we're working on which do have net zero aspirations or net positive aspirations, which is very good to see. But also, and I guess very relevant in our times, a real focus around wellness and health and well-being, particularly sort of around the hospitality projects. So I think overall what we're seeing is extremely positive. Okay,
great. And Alan, what's some of the things you look for at Cundall? What's some of the sustainable principles that your focus is on, particularly in Saudi Arabia at the moment?
Well, I think the key drivers are around net zero carbon. That's absolutely one of the key focuses. I've heard more about net zero carbon in the last year than I have in the previous 20 years. And it is one of the most significant challenges we have as a planet. And in combination with that, like health and well-being had actually started streaking ahead of net zero carbon, but I can see with the pandemic that it's all come rushing back again. And people are recognizing that you have to look after both people and planet if you want to get a proper sustainable outcome. And the worry for me is that people jump one way or the other and they leave a very important chunk behind. So, for example, making sure that buildings are healthy for people doesn't mean that you throw loads of energy at it so that you're not achieving the net zero carbon agenda. It's finding the right balance between both those really important and complementary requirements.
Okay. And there seems to obviously be an agreement there between Alan and Saeed that the main driver is net zero. Mohamed, would you agree with what Alan and Saeed have said so far? Do you think that net zero is sort of the key focus?
Yeah, exactly. Even our Katerra, we are also focusing on combating the climatic changes by adopting all the sustainability in every our activities. So our core sustainability, the principle is to deliver improved environmental performance, reduce carbon footprint, and we do so without increasing cost in all our organizational activities. This is our core sustainability. You are basically technology-driven company, so we are focusing on each and every product. Our mission is to transform the construction industry through technology for every process and every product. So we are working on this. This is our core principle.
Okay, and it's interesting you just said technology, Mohamed, which leads into my next question for you guys. Yeah. So obviously net zero is a big driver, but since the turn of the year in 2020, there's been a real acceleration of how we operate as an industry, and technology is one of those applications that is really sort of gaining interest in the minute. So how important do you think the adoption of technology is for a sustainable future? And at what stage do you think Saudi Arabia is at with the use of digital applications such as BIM, Mohamed? Perhaps you can start off with this first.
Okay, we are strongly believe that the addressing the climatic change and the environmental crisis, the construction practices are not possible. Definitely, we cannot handle the situation. So we are expecting some major and drastic transformational changes in the construction practice on a massive scale at a faster speed. Only can bring some changes in it. So we are also working towards this goal. But we are, as a being an international company, we are adopting different technology from country to the country. For example, we introduce a new product called CLT, cross laminated timber. This is basically wood. We are using this product as a structural members. We are completely eliminating concrete and steel. You know that these two metals have a high carbon footprint. So we are using this material in the US. But the same material cannot be used in our KSA. You know that the wood and all very scarce. So we are entirely adopting the new technology. We recently introduced a new two technology. We call it K-Crete and K-Fibercrete. The K-Crete is basically the concrete without the cement. So this is a new technology we developed. We all know that cement is a main ingredient in the concrete. That is the main contributor of the carbon to the atmosphere. So you know that the one ton of the concrete, it emitting 0.9 ton of the carbon to the atmosphere.
Okay, and Alan, you know,
so everybody's ready the concrete so that we can reduce the carbon footprint. Is the carbon footprint. So we are going for it now. It's already in the practice. Everybody replacing the cement with some industrial byproducts like industrial waste, like a fly ash, GGBS, all to certain percentage. But here we are just want to go one step ahead. So we are completely eliminating the cement. We call it this the green concrete. It's the geopolymer technology. So we are going to implement the technology very soon in the Saudi. It will give a lot of changes. One thing. Second thing we developed is the K-Fibercrete. That means the structure without the steel reinforcement. It's also another. We are adopting the fiber technology. So already we tested this one. We started implementing the KSC also. So this will help achieve our sustainable development goals, to bring the carbon footprint. The another also, we are going for different methodology. We are going for the modular construction. It's something advanced to the conventional precast concrete system. The precast concrete system, we are going for the individual product that costs in the factory, then sent to the site for the installation and all. But here, this is totally a off-site factory solution. We do everything in the factory as a module. We are going for the 3D module volumetry box. We do everything, including the finishing, MEP, everything will be done in the factory. Then we'll send to the site for the installation work. So this is a new construction technology we want to adopt. This will bring a lot of changes. First of all, we can reduce the material wastage by 20%. You can reduce the workers. The delivery time will be 50% faster. We can reduce the transport. Then even reduce the water. There are a lot of advantages in this. So these are the technology we are focusing on to introduce in the KSA to bring some sustainable changes in the country. This is what we are planning. It's more products and pipeline. We'll be introducing one by one in the near future.
Okay, great. And Alan, what are some of the technologies that you're sort of adopting at Cundall, and what are you doing sort of specifically in Saudi Arabia? Are you able to elaborate a little bit what you're doing at the firm?
Well, I think certainly BIM is a great opportunity, and the use of BIM in Saudi is very similar to other places around the world. I don't think the full potential of BIM is anyway realized as yet. So certainly modular construction and BIM go together. But I think there's a whole opportunity to look at the end of life side of things. So looking at the whole life cycle carbon. And if you've got every asset in the building properly tagged within BIM, so you understand exactly what the specification is of those elements, then you can start identifying what elements could be reused. So the building is designed for deconstruction. At the end of its life, you can take the structure apart, you can test that the components are still viable, and you can then effectively reuse those. So not only are you recycling the embodied carbon, but you're also recycling the cost. So you're getting maximum financial value out of your project, and you're storing up that budget for the future. So that's one aspect of it. And I think in terms of digital approach, and certainly for net zero, the ability to use coding to test and verify design approaches is really important. And it's a very quick, very fast process, which means that you don't have to delay the process, and you can get to a conclusion much quicker as to what is a better way of doing things. And you're testing preconceived ideas. You're not simply producing the same thing that you've done before, which means you end up with the same type of a building. And you can really then see where the carbon benefits and the cost benefits are, and that balance between the two. And finally, one last thing is, if you want to focus on a problem, you've got to be able to see the problem correctly. And the way we look at energy in buildings typically isn't very good, particularly the design stage. So adopting something like the Australian Neighbours scheme, and we're seeing that happening in the UK in particular, is really important, because you're looking at real energy, providing real predictions, and you can see what the sensitivity is then of design decisions on what will be the end result of a project. And I think bringing all these things together, then you start really making steps towards net zero carbon.
Okay. And I just want to elaborate on what you mentioned about coding there, and I want to get sort of a comparison on where Saudi Arabia is at compared to other major markets in the Middle East, such as the UAE. So, Saeed, perhaps you could talk about some of the building codes in Saudi Arabia, and how far do you think? What's the comparisons of Saudi Arabia and the UAE in terms of sustainable development?
No, thank you. And I guess firstly, just on the technology piece, I'm very pleased to hear from both Alan and Mohamed that their sort of discussion around technology and innovation is actually more around changing the approach that we do things, as opposed to what we've been guilty of as an industry for many decades of just using technology as bells and whistles to throw onto the building. But really, what we should be doing, and what we are seeing now, and pleasing to hear as well, is that it's using technology to transform how we do things, because that's, to me, is where the real opportunities are. And I think, as Alan mentioned, we're seeing a lot of things around sort of using coding and algorithm-driven design to sort of not only validate projects, but actually using those codes and things to actually arrive at the solution much quicker than a human can. And some of our net zero projects, that's what we've been doing, is actually trying to optimize the sort of using a computer to actually come up with the design of the solution, much quicker and much more effectively. So that's very positive. The part around the codes and standards, I think we definitely see that there's a lot of government leadership here in the region. And I think just picking up one particular piece that, again, from what Alan was talking about around having a mechanism to measure energy in an effective way, schemes like Neighbours, which actually measure not theoretical energy, but the actual operational, real energy that buildings consume. Because it's only with that data that can we actually start to make more informed decisions and move things forward. And I'm aware that that is something that is currently being developed in the kingdom. That is a development that's underway. We were actually responsible for developing that policy regulation in Dubai. So it's something that we are seeing here in the region as well, that moving towards more of an operational metric for energy and water, so that we're actually able to sort of not just have theoretical measurements or design-based measurements of how well our buildings perform, but actually how do they actually perform in operation? Because in that transition from design to operation, there's a number of steps. The quality of construction, the quality of commissioning, how well the O&M practices worked, what's changed from the design into the operation, end user behavior, and it's really that chunk can actually cause your sort of theoretical design consumption to triple. So it's really very important that we are moving towards that, and it is something that is being developed, as I'm aware, in the kingdom and in the UAE as well.
Okay, and I want to move the next part of the discussion onto sort of areas that are cropping up time and again in Saudi Arabia, and is really sort of getting a lot of interest in the kingdom. So this is the development of desalination plants. and solar energy sites and brownfield sites. Now, I just want to pull out quite an interesting stat that I found recently. So it was a report that said Saudi Arabia is the world's third largest per capita consumer of water, behind the US and Canada. And the kingdom's introduced measures to rationalize water consumption as part of the Vision 2030 program, with the goal of achieving 24% reduction in consumption in 2021 by as much as 43% by the end of this decade. So, Saeed, what do you think of these statistics of Saudi Arabia? And are you involved in particular, AESG, with these kind of projects?
Yeah, no, I think this is again a regional challenge, around water consumption, and this is not all purely down to buildings and individuals' consumption. It's irrigation and all sorts, driven by the climate and lack of water supply. So it is very crucial that the water is front and center, and there is a huge amount of opportunity, both from sort of the building level, which I think is knows very well about how we tackle that sector, but really sort of on the infrastructure side. There's a lot of work to be done across the region in improving sort of that efficiency, minimizing losses, in the distribution systems, etc. And there's a lot of research going on now and development. I know particularly in Saudi Arabia around desalination, and how can we sort of look at desalination through a more environmental measure without some of the negative impacts. What we do with the sort of the brine, etc., that comes out of it. So I know there is a lot of work happening there with in partnerships between public sector entities, academia, and the private sector. So I think really good examples of public-private academic partnership that's being developed. So yeah, I think it's a challenge across the region, and I guess with climate change is going to become more of a challenge that needs to be addressed on that.
Okay. And Mohamed, do you agree with what Saeed said? Do you think it is a challenge at the minute? And are you working on any of these kind of projects in Katerra in Saudi Arabia at the moment that you can share with us?
No. Actually, we are focusing only on the residential buildings only for the time being. So
Okay.
maybe the future we can go for the thing. But even the building is concerned, we are going for a lot of energy efficient system. We are trying to introduce. So overall, it's not only the water. We are going for the overall energy efficient system. We are also designing for the houses. So in the next phase of the build project, we'll be introducing that too.
Okay. And same again to you, Alan. Are you working on anything sort of along the lines of desalination projects and solar energy sites for Cundall in the kingdom?
Not at the moment, but what I would say about desalination is looking at the embodied carbon of water is quite important, because desalination is a very energy intensive aspect. And the other thing I would say is the potential impact on the marine habitat in the Red Sea should be very carefully considered as well, because again, the waters around the kingdom are quite shallow typically, and as a result you start removing a lot of water and potentially pushing brine back in could have a negative impact on the marine life. So it just needs to be looked at in the round. Okay.
And in our Leaders UAE events that we presented earlier this year, one of our panelists, we also had another sustainability panel, and one of the speakers believed that the onus should not be on the private sector to increase sustainable awareness, and more was needed from the government in the UAE to step in and regulate and enforce these incentive schemes, such as duty-free and VAT-free import for green certified buildings. So what are you all noticing from the government side in Saudi Arabia at the minute? Do you think the recent increase in VAT will cause issues and problems for the sustainable development? Alan, it'd be good to get your thoughts first on this.
Well, carefully constructed taxation can have a very positive impact in terms of people's strategy towards sustainability. Clearly, increasing tax is quite a negative element, but if you had a structure whereby materials that were demonstrably sustainable were free from the tax, then you're certainly encouraging things strongly in that direction. And I think there's the case of a bit of push and pull, so you encourage and discourage through the taxation system. But what we're also seeing is that there is kind of a groundswell of interest in sustainability right across the world, and I think developers are taking it far more seriously because they realize it can impact on the actual value of the development, and even encouraging investors to fund that development is potentially reliant on the environmental credentials in the future. And in Saudi in particular, they're introducing the Masterdam standard for sustainability, which will be applied to projects. And I think that's a real positive step forward. So it indicates the direction of travel.
Okay. And Saeed, what do you think about the recent increase in VAT in Saudi Arabia? Will it affect the development of sustainability in Saudi Arabia, do you think?
I wouldn't say VAT itself would necessarily have a direct impact, around sustainability. I think the point that you mentioned is very relevant in terms of what is the role of the government in terms of moving the sustainability agenda forward. I sort of believe in that sort of theory of change that with any transformation and the transformation towards sustainable development or net zero carbon follows that same theory that you do have your market leaders, which should be encouraged, and they were maybe 5-10% of the market that will voluntarily or see the business case for pushing the limits and being first movers, and an incentive scheme like reduced taxation or increasing floor area or things. What that will do will encourage that 5-10% pool, and what they do is basically break through barriers, technological and financial barriers for the rest of the market to follow. Now, once that happens, you do get maybe the next 20% of the market will follow them. They'll see that the way has been paid for them, and that they will go through. But to really catch that sort of remaining sort of 65-70%, I strongly believe that really only happens through regulation and policy. That you need those first movers to break through to show that it can be done. Government's not going to produce a policy without the business case behind it. For any policy, not just around sustainability, but to bring those through, it's not going to be through incentives. It's going to be through regulation and policy. So that's my view. And I don't see that VAT will have a lever. I think using taxation as a method for incentives, and we've seen this through Europe. We've seen this in other parts of the world that there's these subsidies and incentive schemes, and it does very well to get those first movers to activate. But to really move the mass, you need to use the fact that they've shown the way it's possible to do, and they need to be pushed through policy. Okay.
And we've got about 5 or 10 minutes left of the session yet. So I just want to draw the next part of the panel onto the financial side of sustainability. As you heard earlier, Thabet Al Sawyeed from SEA talked about the forming of public-private partnerships. Do you think PPP in meeting targets for carbon emissions is essential at all? Mohamed, perhaps you could give your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on PPP in terms of sustainable development?
Yeah, actually, this is really critically important to go for the PPA. This is to achieve our goal towards the sustainable development goals. I strongly support that. But now already we are in the initial stage, but still a long way to go. So the awareness of the sustainability is still necessary to go for it. But it will happen in the near future. We are quite optimistic about that.
Okay. And is that the same sort of views for you, Alan? Are you optimistic about PPPs kind of being essential for meeting carbon emission targets?
Yes, exactly. No, exactly. But currently we don't involve in any of the PPE now. Maybe even if a company can involve in the PPE also. So this is in our agenda in the future. So we'll be mainly focusing on the carbon reduction only. So go for zero carbon. That is our target.
Okay. And Alan, what do you think about that? Do you agree with Mohamed's thoughts there? Do you think it is, are you optimistic about PPPs in Saudi Arabia for Cundall?
Yes, well, it certainly has the potential to get projects moving with the right amount of resource to implement strategies that might be more difficult. Like with PPP, you tend to look at things on a much longer time scale. And when you start looking things over the whole life of a building, you can look at whole life cycle cost to whole life cycle carbon to work out where the right balance is between that. If everything's focused on capital cost, then it usually is to the detriment of operational cost and energy. While if you look at the whole life cycle, then you can get the right balance between that.
Okay. And again, Saeed, from you, have you noticed an appetite recently for PPPs in Saudi Arabia in terms of sustainability?
Yeah, definitely, and particularly sort of on sort of municipal services and infrastructure. We've been involved looking at a few sort of PPP schemes in that area, and I think exactly as Alan says, it gives you the opportunity for a long-term horizon to be looked at. When you structure a PPP, you're looking at the life cycle cost and the life cycle revenue from it. You're not looking at the immediate capital, because the consortium and the parties are locked in for the period of the PPP concession, which could be 30 years, 35 years, or more. So it does create that opportunity, and from a sort of sustainability perspective, there is the opportunity to overlay KPIs which are sustainability related within the sort of consortium contracts to enable that to be incentivized. So I see there is a lot of opportunity. With it, there are a lot of challenges with PPP projects. In getting them moving, getting the right partners. There's generally a longer cycle to get them off the ground. This is globally, not just in the region. But done correctly and done with the right private sector partners that share that sort of long-term view, then they do create a good opportunity. I'm not sure it'll be as much in the building sector. Globally, you look, most PPPs are in major infrastructure services, whether it's sort of waste management plants, wastewater treatment, power plants, and we're seeing a lot of IPP projects in Saudi Arabia, independent power purchasing contracts, which has created a big opportunity for renewables to enter that space, and for the private sector to participate and provide their sort of innovation and sort of private sector efficiencies to really drive that. And I think we'll definitely see a lot of it in that space. Whether it will be sort of something in buildings, I guess remains to be seen, but there's a lot of opportunity in it, on that side.
Okay. And we've got a couple of minutes left before we move on to our next panel. So I've got a final question for all three of you. So, as we all know, Saudi Arabia is focusing on increasing tourism with its variety of giga projects. So I'd like views from all of you here. Do you think the future success of tourism in Saudi Arabia relies on sustainable construction and sustainable destinations? Saeed, we'll start with you.
Well, I think we've been doing some work with some sort of government entities in the region, not in the kingdom, but in other areas around their sort of future visions and strategies for tourism. And what that might look like in terms of attracting future tourists into the region, from all facets, not just the sustainability side. And a lot of the research we've been looking at is, the modern traveler, or the sort of the travelers in the future, are going to be looking at these metrics quite importantly. As you look at sort of the next generation that will be the tourists of the future, they value these a lot higher than sort of previous generations. So it is really important. There is an important message around the sustainability of that tourism sector. What impact it's created on the environment. Has it enhanced its natural environment? What is the sort of carbon emissions of the projects that have been done? Not just sort of the ecotourism element. I think if you look at the last decade, it was very much around, there's an ecotourism market, whereas now it's actually kind of just all blended together. And it is important that the hospitality sector globally has embraced that, and we're seeing a lot of that as well. And I think the great thing is that, particularly around the Giga projects and others, sustainability and environmental protection is really placed at the heart of the projects. When you look at Amaala, the Red Sea, and others, it really is one of the key focuses as well.
Okay. And Mohamed, just a quick summary on, again, how essential do you think sustainable construction is for the future success of Saudi Arabia? Can you give us a little bit of an insight into that?
Yeah. See, the sustainability has become everyone's concern now, compared to, let's say, a decade ago. So definitely the sustainable tourism will be definitely the attractive point to the tourism globally. In KSA vision, to diversify the economy and open the country up for the world, I believe that the sustainable tourism will be the instrumental to ensuring the full success of the KSA tourism. So this definitely is advantageous for it.
Okay. And Alan, just to finalise the webinar, what are your thoughts on this? Do you agree with what Saeed and Mohamed has said? Do you do anything different at Cundall, or do you have any other thoughts that you think?
Well, no, I agree. Like sustainability concerns are mainstream nowadays. They aren't niche, so it's not ecotourism. People are voting with their wallets nowadays, and they are making decisions on a daily basis based on what their view is of products. Funds are seeing this, so they're setting up sustainable funds that are genuinely sustainable, and they're looking to up their game as well because people are wanting this. The demand is just increasing. So for tourism, it's exactly the same.
Brilliant. And that brings to us the end of our first panel discussion of the day. Saeed, Alan, and Mohamed, thank you for delivering such interesting thoughts, and it's a pleasure to speak with you. We're going to take a short break, and we will be back to introduce our Giga Projects panel. See you very soon.
The world is in flux. Every day we face new challenges which demand us to think differently, to always balance algorithms and instincts, to embrace experts and entrepreneurs, to combine virtual and reality, to think laterally and search out the connections others fail to make. At Mott MacDonald, we look at challenges from a fresh perspective. We never stop asking, what if? We are pioneers with a thirst for innovation. Our restless curiosity propels us and our clients forward, turning obstacles into sustainable pathways, never losing sight of the human impact of our actions and the responsibility that this entails. With every project, we create a new space. A space to think. A space to challenge. A space to question. A space to partner. A space to grow. A space for open opportunities. We're Mott MacDonald. We open opportunities with connected thinking.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you are all enjoying the conference so far. And what a way to end day one by hearing from 3 of the multi-billion-dollar projects are taking shape in Saudi Arabia at the moment, as well as one of the world's leading interior contractors who are making a name for themselves in the kingdom. So joining us today will be Amaala's Head of Business Development, Stephen Cheesebrough, NEOM's Chief Projects Officer, Brett Smythe, Diriyah Development Authority's Chief Design and Development Officer, Jonathan Timms, and Depa Interiors Director, Abdoullah Albizreh. So Stephen, Brett, Jonathan, Abdullah, welcome to the panel. I'm sure this is going to be a very exciting debate and one that our audience is going to be really interesting in hearing about. So again, I just want to give a brief introduction for our panelists today before we begin. So Stephen Cheesebrough is responsible for leading business development initiatives across all asset classes within Amaala, including the business planning of real estate assets and events, as well as securing the operating partners. Brett Smythe is responsible for the delivery of the design and construction of NEOM and collaborates closely with key functions, including urban development, master planning, and finance on the strategy and execution of major projects. Jonathan Timms leads the design and development pipeline for Diriyah Gate Development Authority, including the iconic Diriyah Gate project, which is poised to become the world's largest cultural and heritage development. And finally, Abdoullah Albizreh has worked on the world's tallest tower and has helped the kingdom with its social and economic infrastructure developments, and is tendering a number of projects with the Public Investment Fund. So let's dive straight into the panel. So, with so many exciting projects underway and what is putting Saudi Arabia on the map, I'd like to get thoughts from each of you on what makes your project stand out in particular. And it'd be quite interesting to hear if there's any sort of friendly competition between the big Giga projects to try and entice tourists and locals to your development. So Brett, we'll start off with you. So can you tell us what makes NEOM stand out? What makes it different to any other project in Saudi Arabia?
Thanks, Ashley. So NEOM is different to, really, I think we say, any other project in the world. The sheer scale of it, the size of it, and what we're doing is really different and unique. Firstly, we have it. It's home. It's going to be home and workplace to over 1 million citizens, and we're looking at that. That'll be from people from all over the world, particularly big dreamers. We have over 16 sectors, and one of the things we're really focusing on is exceptional livability and how that connects. Also, related to that is a thriving business. So we're building it from the ground up, and NEOM will be a place where entrepreneurship will chart a course for the future. And like, I guess, some of the other Giga projects, which is consistent with them, would be we're really trying to reinvent conservation. So everything we're doing is designed, constructed, and I think the unique part is that we will be independently administering it. So it's going to be free from environmental constraints from, let's say, legacy infrastructure, where we're starting from scratch. Our mission is to create an urban centre the world has never seen before, and it'll be a prototype for modern ecological living, as I said, built from the ground up. And how we see it is it'll be an approach for city living, which is ready for the 22nd century, not just today. With that comes a lot of base infrastructure, certainly for over 1 million people from scratch. So doing that is really a one-off. We're not upgrading anything for that. We have mobility options that in steady state will be powered 100% by renewable energy. And we're also looking at the technology bringing in hydrogen to play a part of green fuel. So there's a lot of unique things that we see about NEOM overall. I wouldn't say that we're competing against the other Giga projects because our targets are different. Many of those coming to NEOM will be coming to live and work, as I said. Those coming for tourism will be coming because of a unique combination of natural beauty, virtually untouched corals and beaches, to some really majestic mountains. And technology will be integrated into every aspect of the visitor experience. It'll be a diverse set of visitors, thrill seekers, medical tourists, conventions. And what we do see is that will actually support what other Giga projects initiatives are, because tourists would be able to come and do things, whether it's a convention or medical tourists, and be able to experience the benefits of going to the other Giga projects as well.
And Jonathan, I'll come to you next. As I mentioned earlier during the introductions, that Diriyah Gate is obviously going to be the world's largest cultural and heritage development. And as we're joined by people all around the world tuning into this conference day, for example, from Australia and Africa, why should they come to Diriyah Gate when it's finished?
Well, there'll be a lot of reasons. I mean, if we just step back a second, I think all the projects are exciting and they're naturally different. And I haven't noticed any competition between the projects, rather that we're all aligned around what's best for the kingdom. And I think that the sum total of some of the amazing projects you've got across from Katerra to NEOM to Red Sea and more, is going to make a really compelling destination for any tourist, whatever their desire is. In respect to Diriyah, we've got something quite unique in terms of Diriyah is the home of, it's where the first and second and third Saudi state were formed. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it has a real spiritual meaning to all Saudis. We take that responsibility, really, really seriously. And our whole project is steeped in that Saudi history and the culture, with culture and heritage in its heart. So we don't have a theme, or we don't have to workshop what we will be. We're really trying to recreate life as it was hundreds of years ago, and the benefits of some of the amazing attributes of Najdi architecture, but then intertwining that with the modern amenity of some amazing facilities. And when you come to Riyadh for a visit, on your way possibly to Riyadh or the Red Sea, we're confident this will definitely be the place to stay. We've got over 20 hotels, all upper end. And we also have a second development in Wadi Sfar, which has another 10 ultra-luxury hotels and 27-hole golf course and a range of other facilities. So, and that's only 2 kilometres down the road. So there'll be a whole range of reasons to visit us, but we're one component in a broader offer that's going to be very compelling.
Okay. And Stephen, tell us a little bit about Amaala. What some of the things that stand out for you in particular for this project? What have you noticed since you've seen the project come up off the ground?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley, and thank you also to ITP for the invitation to participate. Look, I'd sort of echo the comments of Brett and Jonathan. I think all of the projects taking place in the Kingdom are very much phenomenal, but very complementary, or play a key role in bringing Vision 2030 to life. I think that's what's fantastic about an up-and-coming destination like Saudi Arabia. It's the diversity that it offers. But from Amaala's standpoint, we're very much committed to the preservation of the local environment as well as health and well-being. And very much enjoyed the earlier panel and the discussions around sustainability, and Amaala very much has a key role to play in that regard. But our biggest point of distinction will be our ultra luxury product, and very much inspired by the Red Sea, and very much catering to an international audience as well as the GCC market. So we're very focused in terms of the market segmentation that we're targeting. It's a new breed of discerning consumers who very much seek authentic experiences and will leave a positive footprint on the local ecosystems. So we're developing in a fairly special environment as well, similar to Diriyah and the NEOM project that we've just heard about. But what we're developing will be a natural extension of an incredible environment, and we're looking to create our own sort of contemporary architectural vernacular, but very much inspired by the Saudi Arabian cultural heritage and the natural surroundings. And then we've got the 3 different communities, each of them sort of anchored by a slightly different theme, whether it be the wellness or the arts and culture and the Sunsea and lifestyle offering that will be core to our sort of value proposition. But across all of it, sustainability is very much at the core.
Okay, I think we've lost Abdullah quickly, which is what I wanted to lead my next question onto, but we'll have to just move on and hopefully he comes back. So, we have 3 of the biggest Giga projects in Saudi Arabia here with us today. You mentioned earlier that you kind of all agreed that there's no sense of competition and you're all quite aligned on your prospects and what you're doing at each Giga project. So do you share notes with each other? Obviously, what I've noticed in particularly with stakeholders, is that there's a real sense of collaboration that's needed in order to thrive as an industry. So is that the same case with the Giga projects in Saudi Arabia? Steve, we'll come to you first on this.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Our parent company, the Public Investment Fund, does a fantastic job in that regard to ensure there's synergies across our respective projects, and where sort of appropriate for that exchange of information. I think we're all working with huge focus and urgency and commitment on our respective projects, and that's where the Public Investment Fund really comes in and plays such a key role, and ensures that there's the synergies are very much exploited across the respective project. But we all have the same responsibility in terms of sort of delivering on Vision 2030. So it's very much encouraged to collaborate. We're all working, have the same pressure around time and budget and quality. So where we can collaborate, we certainly look to do so. But the projects, I guess, are at slightly different stages of the development cycle and have slightly different sort of positioning as well, as we've each just sort of touched on. So, it's we're selective as to where that is appropriate and necessary.
Okay. And Abdullah, I want to bring you into the next part of the conversation. I think you were dropping off a couple of times, but you seem to be back with us now. So as I mentioned earlier, you've been involved in pretty much the majority of Saudi Arabia's kind of most exciting and upcoming projects. And from our last conversation, you told me that you were in talks with two of our Giga projects here today, who are Amaala and Diriyah Gate Development Authority. So it'd be good to get an update from you on how these talks have progressed. Are you now working with Jonathan and Stephen? And what are your plans going forward for Depa? I think we've lost Abdullah again, so we'll have to move on. Okay, so in the current economic situation that's going on at the minute, it's affecting funding and probably the speed of construction as well. So, again, I'd like to get thoughts from all three of you here. Has each developer had to regroup, and have you had to organize and change your strategies in light of the COVID-19 situation? Jonathan, we'll start with you. What have you done at Diriyah Gate that you've had to change, or have you had to change anything at all?
It's probably, on a net basis, helped us, actually. Initially, the impact of COVID did have some, complications with our on-site works. But at this stage of our development cycle, most of what's happening is design related. So that's been able to accelerate online. And what we found is that there's a lot of projects around the world that have slowed. So access to quality staff, access to quality consultants has actually improved. And so that's allowed us to accelerate. And we haven't had any budget constraints. We've been very well supported by the Kingdom. And so we've actually found that probably, we've all adjusted to a new way of working, which is becoming, better and better. And I think we're, in some ways, especially on the design side, we're more efficient now in a mainly online platform. But yeah, so it really hasn't had an impact for us at all. Okay.
And Abdullah, can you hear us? I think I finished the question. And
apologies for the.
Okay, I just think our audience would be quite interested in hearing. I mentioned that last time we spoke, you were in talks with Amaala and Diriyah Gate Development Authority. So it'd be good to, what's the progression with these talks? Are you now working with Stephen and Jonathan at these Giga projects, and then what are the plans going forward for Depa? I think we've lost Abdullah again, so we will have to move on. So again, with the COVID-19 situation, it's brought upon quite a lot of challenges and pressures for Saudi Arabia and other countries within the GCC. So what are the biggest challenges that you've faced, and what have been the limitations at your projects in particular? Brett, we'll come with you. What's sort of been the challenges, the biggest challenge that you faced during your time at NEOM?
Yeah, sure. So just back to COVID, similar for us, we really haven't been affected by COVID, and there's been tremendous support by the government and agencies because we have been working since it came into place. We just had to adjust briefly, but we found that certainly in terms of getting things through ports and the changes in terms of transport and lockdowns, we were certainly afforded the ability to move materials around and be able to continue. So that was fantastic. So the support has been amazing for being able to continue. Beyond COVID, as I've said before, for NEOM, we're actually creating something that hasn't been done before. The sheer size of NEOM and the vastness of it. I mentioned movement of materials. It is a massive challenge as we get into it in terms of the scale. In terms of, say, a material like concrete, we'll have over 100 million cubic meters for the project. The scale is just really incredible. The other thing is the topography of the area and the locations that we're going to be, whether it be going from the coastal through some very challenging mountain areas, and we will have communities along those. We'll have transport networks. So there's quite an engineering feat with that. And the other thing is just keeping up with where we need to be with innovation and technology. I've been involved in airports before where by the time you've finished, some of your technology is obsolete. So we have to be thinking through the redundancies as we go for something that's going to be, we're looking at the next 10 years of build out, but it's going to continue over the next 20, 40, 50 years. So being able to be predicting what you may have to do when you don't know what you don't know. So they're the challenges, but they're the ones that we're getting the right minds around those. And as always in the kingdom, there's a requirement to move quickly. So we've got to be able to get the first communities up and running. And that won't be in let's say, an end state, because to bring in hydrogen and fully renewable energy and the like, and changing your transport modes, that happens over the course of some years. So we'll be building the communities at the same time as we're building these new ways of operating. So you put all those together, there's quite a lot of challenges, and it's very exciting to be around that.
Yeah, and like all three Giga projects here today, there's a lot of complexities involved with building these projects. So Stephen, perhaps you could again discuss what are some of the barriers that you've overcome recently. What's something that you could share with us that you found difficult or experienced at Amaala?
Well, look, I think in terms of the challenges, I sort of echo Brett's comments. It's the time constraints, and then that we're working to is a challenge, I guess. But we're exceptionally privileged to have the backing that we do, and the support that we have, whether it be from the Public Investment Fund or the government. In terms of where we're at in the development cycle, there's a huge amount of design work that's still ongoing, and so we've been able to make a lot of headway during the last 6 to 9 months. So similar to Jonathan, that a slight change to the ways of working, but we're working with best-in-class consultants and contractors. So we've really been able to push on. So yeah, the last 6 months has certainly made us change the way in which we go about working, but we've been hugely productive, and the level of backing and support for the project is, if anything, it's stepped up another level or two. In terms of the strategy for the project, again, I think the strategy for Amaala, whilst it was produced pre-COVID, it's perhaps more relevant now, because of the focus that we have on wellness, the low density nature of the project, immersed in nature. So for us as Amaala, it's still all systems go with real urgency, and we're now starting to see more activity on site. And there it's we're lucky that we've been able to secure, and you would have seen in the media some of the contracts that have been let to leading entities that have a presence already in the kingdom. So we've been able to activate that as well during the COVID period. So for us, yeah, there's challenges, but it's how we deal with it, and I'd like to think that we're at the moment we're tracking very well.
Okay. And one of the things that's being picked up quite heavily in the media at the moment is the choice of contractors that are being appointed for each of the giga projects in Saudi Arabia. So, for example, some of the latest contractor appointments include Amaala appointing the likes of Parsons and Hasco for the Triple Bay project, and NEOM appointing AECOM and Bechtel, and Aqua Powers was the other one, I believe. So it'd be good to get your insights into, you know, what are the decisions behind these appointments. And also there's a real big focus at the moment as part of the Saudiization, again, just part of the Vision 2030 agenda, where a lot of these developers are appointing local Saudi contractors. So first of all, Brett, could you tell us what's the decision behind the appointment of the likes of AECOM and Bechtel? Is it just purely based of reputation, or have you worked with these companies before?
Firstly, both of those companies have recently won contracts relating to our backbone infrastructure. And to just give a little bit of context to this, this is one of the largest infrastructure projects in the world right now in terms of size, complexity. It'd be in the top 3. And there's some large projects in the world if you look at High Speed Rail 2 and the like in the UK. And that's just for this one part of NEOM. It's obviously critical because as backbone infrastructure, it'll have high speed rail, it'll have inter-community transport, it will have freight. And given the fact that we have with NEOM a very large requirement for the industrial and manufacturing, there's a huge strategy. There's a lot of movements. It will be the backbone of all of our utilities as well. So in terms of scale and selection process for both the engineering, key engineering consultancy, and also an executive project management, in both of AECOM and Bechtel, they not only lead the world in those areas with other companies as well, they have a very strong reputation, but also here in the Kingdom, they have incredible experience. And to be honest, on both fronts, there's probably, on one hand, the number of, in the competition space, that have the reach, the capacity and the experience, and to be able to deliver those services in the time frame that we need. So that's really in terms of those decisions. Certainly for us, a priority is making sure the way that we package our contracts and we do our design is able to do work packages that allows the biggest breadth of both competition, but also ability for the national Saudi oil companies and regional companies in the greater Middle East region as well, to be able to compete and work on NEOM. Because one of the issues that we'll certainly be facing over the next few years is the giga projects, large projects. There will be unprecedented workload within Saudi Arabia. So one thing that there will be competition for is the contracting, the design services, and everything, and making sure that that spread and the capabilities and supporting that, and particularly the local side of it, is very important. In terms of Saudiization, for us, it's not only about employing Saudi citizens, but working closely with the communities as well to increase, access to education and job training. So we're at the moment having a very large focus on that within the region that we are operating, and we're at an early stage of the execution side of it, but we're growing in terms of our partners and contractors, and we're fully focused that we look for and work with the best Saudi talent available for the project. Okay.
And yeah, elaborating on the last part of my question about Saudiization, Jonathan, when we spoke a couple of months ago as part of our magazine cover, that was again one of the priorities for you in appointing local contractors to be part of your development in particular. Is that still the case, or are you looking to more sort of international contractors at all?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in Saudi Arabia. It would be ideal if everything could be built by Saudi contractors, but our assessment process is, like I'm sure, like all the other projects is based on merit and based on their technical ability to do what we need to do. So at this stage, we, whilst a lot of our design have gone to the international companies like AECOM, CRTKL, and the like, most of our infrastructure works on site have been done by, undertaken by Saudi companies. So the likes of Al-Yama, Bawani, Amarco have all got contracts with us, and that's fantastic. It's also a little bit different for us because of a large portion of our project is built in traditional Najdi architecture. We really need to rely on some of the skills that are present in Saudi. Now, we also have an enormous infrastructure delivery program, and we'll have to assess the capacity in the market as we normally do when we go forward. So we're not saying everyone will be Saudi, but you know, if it worked out that way for the majority of our projects, that would obviously be a positive thing.
And Steve, you know, can you talk a little bit more about, you know, the decisions behind the appointments of Parsons and Hasco for your Triple Bay project? And again, is the focus more on Saudi contractors for you, or are you looking to appoint, you know, these big sort of contractors such as Parsons and Hasco?
Yeah, no, thanks. Good question, Ashley. Well, look, we're a global brand, you know, with roots in Saudi Arabia. So for us, it's important to support Saudi businesses. But having said that, because of the scale of the project, and we're set within a protected area, the expertise and experience of these contractors were decisive factors. You know, we need partners who work according to best global practices and can adhere to our stringent standards, especially when it comes to sustainability. And the panel before that touched on a number of those key elements, and in particular for us with regards to the marine conservation piece as well, when we're building the marinas that we are. But yeah, all of our partners, they have an innate understanding of the local landscape, which is also so important to us. But we run a very formal process, as you would expect, being a government-owned entity. So, and this is just the first of many contracts that we'll be going to the market with. But it's yes, a large focus on Saudi entities where possible, but it's about making sure we can deliver to the right quality that a project like this demands, and as well being environmentally sensitive.
Okay, and I want to move the next part of the conversation onto the PIF, which is the Public Investment Fund, and for those that don't know, is it's a sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia, who are kind of investing huge amounts of money in these projects. Again, this question doesn't apply to Jonathan, as Diriyah Gate is not backed by PIF, but do you think this investment, without this investment, do you think it would be possible to get these projects up and coming? And you know, it'd be good to hear particularly about this from Stephen and Brett. So Brett, you know, do you think without the PIF, do you think NEOM would be possible?
Well, what I can say is that PIF is the owner and lead developer for NEOM. So the project, I would say it's not possible without them. I'm not sure if I've got the full picture and experience to be able to say, could it happen without them? But certainly from our perspective, we've got an excellent relationship with them, and you know, their support is fundamental for our success. So certainly from the lens that we see, let's say looking up, we can't see this project as being possible without them.
Okay, and same to you, Stephen. You know, do you think without PIF, do you think Amaala would happen?
I look very much the same as Brett. A project of this scale, this level of ambition, it needs a sovereign wealth fund of the profile of the public investment to be able to succeed. They're instrumental in everything that we're doing. You know, obviously, with the professional team that's in place to deliver on it, but the backing and support that we receive from them is critical to the success of the project. So yeah, they're integral to this project being a success.
Okay, and I want to explore more about the implications of Vision 2030 now. So again, I want to come to Jonathan on this, because obviously he couldn't talk about the PIF side. Jonathan, we spoke again a couple of months ago that Diriyah Gate is set to be completed by 2025, and you're on a fast track to make that happen. How are you going to ensure that your project is completed on time and within budget by 2025?
Well, that's a really good and complex question. I think it comes back to one of your earlier questions about our biggest challenges. And I think from our perspective, our biggest challenge is probably complexity and then trading off speed for quality. So whilst our project covers 67 square kilometres, which is a lot smaller than most of the other Giga projects, and it covers about 80 billion SAR, over 50 billion SAR, just in excess, is covered in 3.5 square kilometres. So I've got the exact opposite infrastructure challenge that, say, Brett has at NEOM, where we have an enormous amount of infrastructure and a real intensity of development. And that combined with part of our vision is that being a 300-year-old city, we don't have any surface vehicle movements, almost at all. We have enormous infrastructure challenge below ground. So we have an ambitious program. I think that all we can do is make sure we get the best and brightest, both internally and externally, working on it, move with pace and have great support. And to date, we've been meeting every goal, and we've had an amazing support from our board, chaired by His Royal Highness, and so we just need to move forward on that basis and aim to get it finished by 2025. But when you include by 2025, we're talking about 34 hotels, 8 museums, 20,000 subservice car parks. There's a whole range of things that are being done. They're all being done, but it's an ambitious program.
Absolutely. Okay. And Stephen, again, do you have anything sort of up your sleeve in terms of aiming to complete these projects on time? Is there anything you can share with us at all?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, for us, it's we've definitely got a phasing strategy. It's impossible for us to deliver the entire Amaala project in one phase. So we have a phased delivery of the project, and at the moment, the 3 master plans are at slightly different stages of the development cycle. So yeah, phased delivery, working with best-in-class consultants and contractors. And like I said earlier, it's best in class is one thing, but also having a good understanding for developing in this and delivering projects in this part of the world. It I guess adds another complexity to it, in particular in our instance, where we sit within a nature reserve and in a sort of protected site. So it's important that we don't compromise on the natural environment as well, because that is very much our one of our core assets, which will be a big sort of demand driver to our customers coming to visit. So phased, top tier consultants and contractors that have good international and regional experience.
Okay. And Brett, again, same question to you. What's your goal in how are you going to ensure that your project is completed within the 2030 agenda? What's sort of the strategy and thought process for NEOM?
Yeah, so NEOM is the world's largest startup. Now, NEOM's been around for some time, but it's taken NEOM ourselves, and this is to be very frank and open and honest, it's taken NEOM some time to really get the governance and understanding together, because we don't have a few master plans. We have a regional plan, and we have many different regions that have their own master plans. which each of those now we're getting the formation of all of our founding boards. And then above that, there's the board. So in terms of governance and our understanding ourselves, and I've been with the organisation for coming on to 11 months, but what I see as a difference, and this is really important to the construction industry, is that we have had some false starts in the past. But the one thing that we see now is that our master plans, and as Stephen said, getting master plans approved and going through the process of concept detailed master plans is such an important part of the success of the projects. And I come from the dirt under the nails design and construction side of it. And as time gets eaten up, that's the bit that suffers or has the most pressure. What we see now, and we do have obviously stage completion requirements, and I guess this is a very much a positive for the construction industry, particularly here in Saudi, is that we're now positioning the approvals of these master plans. So we're in a place now where our real permanent construction is about to commence, and we've gone through, I guess, the pain and the growing pains of going from a straight out startup to an operating organisation of huge complexity with over many founding boards for different areas and tying those together. So for us, is the most important thing is being able to close through those master plans. We have very challenging schedules, and I know time doesn't allow, but it's a theme of these 2 days. For us, it's modern methods of construction, mass modular, off-site, getting into a manufacturing style. When we've got to do precincts of many tens of thousands of people in a few years, you can't do that by normal construction. So we're embedding technology, innovation. We're trying to bring we are bringing the smartest from around the world. And very importantly, the challenge that's put back to us is making sure we're localizing that and really having a step change shift in the localization through the life cycle of the planning, design, construction within Saudi Arabia. So I think it's a very exciting time, and we'll be working together with the other Giga projects and other projects in Saudi, so that whilst we'll be able to have these ecosystems of modern methods of construction, that will be able to go out to other parts of wider Saudi Arabia to that benefit as well.
Okay. And we've got about 5 or 10 minutes left of the session. And the penultimate question, which is something that I think our audience is going to be particularly interested in hearing about from all three of you, is obviously the construction updates on the 3 Giga projects. So I think, Jonathan, I think we spoke with you probably most recent about this. So has there been any further progression at all that you can tell us?
Yeah, so we've got 9 different projects on site, different contractors working, and I think when we spoke last time we had 6. So all of those 6 projects, be it our major excavation for our infrastructure project or hotel or museum we're building, etc., they're all progressing really well on time. We've also, since that time, commenced work on our 27-hole Greg Norman golf course in Wadi Sfar. We've got a huge infrastructure effort over the 60 square kilometres of Wadi Sfar, and that work is now just, the physical work is now just kicking off. And then we've also done the first stage of our Wadi Hanifa, or we're starting our first stage of the Wadi Hanifa transformation. So I think that we'll just keep rolling with those, and then we've got in early to mid 2021, we'll have some very, very large contracts being let for our infrastructure.
Very exciting. And Steve, what stage of progression are you at with Amaala at the moment in terms of construction progress?
Yeah, so we haven't got as much site activity as Diriyah at the moment, but we're very much on track. We broke ground earlier this summer. The master planning has been approved by our board of directors. We've been through a very extensive sort of feasibility exercise, which has been completed and approved as well. So we're very much in a good position with regards to a lot of the approvals, let's say. And And then we're currently on site doing early construction work, preparing to build our workers' accommodations, and then the initial enabling works and earthworks for the Triple Bay project. So that's, of the 3 master plans, that's the one which is most advanced and will be part of phase 1, if you like. So yeah, construction is starting, and it's great to see us moving into that phase now. And particularly when you look at the sort of challenges and constraints that we've been working through over the last 6 months. And then from a design standpoint, we've got a huge amount of asset design that's underway. So and again, with some of the world's best architects, it really is phenomenal, the design work that's been produced, and it certainly makes my life a lot easier with regards to bringing in the international partners, whether it be the hotel operators or other. So yeah, I guess that's a quick update from me.
Okay. And Brett, there's been a lot of news coming out from Amaala, particularly in the last couple of weeks, in terms of contractors being appointed. So obviously that shows there's progression going on at NEOM. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on at the moment in terms of construction?
Yeah, so I'll start with let's say the temporary works, because you've got to understand where, with the size of NEOM and the logistics, we're actually finishing off over the next few months the first construction village. We're actually we have external local contractors that have taken on investment to build construction villages that really, they're not labour camps. They're villages that are way over international IFC requirements, and they're part of the, let's say, the community. So the first 10,000 person village will be open in January, and we will have by the middle of next year construction villages up to 30,000 people. So they will be the first resident. With that, we have an enormous area, about 6 kilometres, 4 kilometres, for contractor laydown areas, waste segregation, areas for over 36 batch plants. So you can imagine the logistics, that's a huge part of our preparation works right now. In terms of the permanent works, which, as Steve was saying, and myself as well, is that we are closing in on the first approvals for detailed master plan from the board. That's going to open up enormous amounts of, similarly, earthworks and the early building works. And it'll be areas like water innovation centres and manufacturing areas. We've just finalising the first land lease for a 200,000 square metre mass modular factory that an external provider will be coming in and setting that up themselves. And in terms of our infrastructure, our backbone infrastructure, we're sending out pre-qualifications at the moment for civil works, concrete box works, very large scope, and we will be in the very near future for our temporary tunnelling works and permanent tunnelling works. So as our design progresses for our backbone infrastructure, they will continuously come out over the next 6 months, and there'll be very active bidding over the next 9 months for that. As I said, one of the top 3 largest transport infrastructures projects in the world.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, it's good to hear that everything's progressing well across the 3 developments. And just a final question for the session, which again, I'd like all inputs from everyone here. When all of these projects are finished, how much of a reputation and impact do you think these developments will have on the kingdom, and particularly globally as well? Do you think that these giga projects are going to put Saudi Arabia on the map in terms of tourism? Are you going to see a huge influx of people coming to Saudi Arabia just to come to your projects? Jonathan, we'll start with you first.
I think absolutely, Ashley. I mean, I think already when you saw the tourism launch late last year, opening up the kingdom to tourism for the first time in a long time, and already seeing that there's a whole load of interesting things to explore within across the kingdom. But all of these giga projects are going to completely transform visiting Riyadh and the broader kingdom. And it's when you look at not only these giga projects, but so many other large-scale projects that are being undertaken in Riyadh and in Jeddah, and then right across. It's going to be an amazing place. And I think that the world doesn't really understand nearly enough about how great Saudi Arabia is and how warm and hospitable the people of Saudi are. But once the world becomes to understand that, plus all of these amazing attractions and reasons to visit and the authenticity around a lot of these attractions, I think it will just, the kingdom's reputation will skyrocket.
Okay. And Brett, we'll come to you next. Do you think all these sort of developments going on in Saudi Arabia will transform the country in particular, economically, tourism, etc.? What do you think about this?
No doubt. It's unique what's happening here, and I think each of the projects undertaken, as you've heard, have their own uniqueness and they're complementary. Certainly when we look at NEOM, it's not just tourism destination, it's not just a new city. I think one of the things that's really exciting for NEOM is that it's going to be this hyper-connected cognitive cities with technology, sustainability, everything built into it. So I think one of the exciting things of that is just the draw it will have internationally and locally. And I think that combined with the other projects and what they offer is going to be something that, the world hasn't seen. And it's certainly going to be something that is going to propel Saudi Arabia, and I think be able to really fulfill the 2030 vision.
Okay. And Stephen, some final thoughts from you. What do you think is going to happen to Saudi Arabia when all these projects are built?
Yeah, well, look, just echoing the comments of Brett and Jonathan, really. I mean, each of the projects in their own right are phenomenal, and they will be attracting a global audience. But when you aggregate that, the value proposition is just mind-blowing. And so, yeah, we're Amaala as a whole, whilst we are, today very focused on what we're mandated to deliver. And I think, we will feature globally as a prominent destination for the ultra-high net worth community and everything that we're building. But then, when you position it alongside all of these other projects, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is really going to sit well and truly at the forefront of the tourism industry. And anyone ambitious in this space, in the industry today, Saudi Arabia has a huge amount to offer in that regard, whether it be on the development side and delivery or the operating side. I think what's being done here today has never been done in the world. So we're all quite sort of privileged to be part of that, and looking forward to working with a lot of the best-in-class panelists, attendees that you've got listening in today.
Okay. And I think we've got Abdullah back. Abdullah, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I hope you can hear me. Apologies. We've done a lot of tests yesterday and today, and we still got some bugs. So I'm now online with you from my phone because there's a problem with the PC.
Okay, no problem. Well, it'd be good just to get your thoughts, just to try and include you, obviously, in our discussion today. So we basically said, what we talked about what's going on in Saudi Arabia at the moment. We've got 3 of our biggest giga projects in the kingdom. When these projects are finished, how much of a reputation and impact do you think these developments will have on Saudi Arabia? And do you think globally it's going to put Saudi Arabia on the map?
Yeah, I mean, look at any big development that's happened, a successful development that has happened around the world. You think of Barcelona '92, which was kind of became like a roadmap for any Olympics because of the successful transmission that it had, first of all, on the local population, but it also increased tourism from 1.6 million to 6 million in over 14 years. That's about 25% increase in tourism per year, which is phenomenal. Obviously, the impact on the built environment for the locals, real estate asset prices has also increased. So I think also one of the developments that has happened is KFD, because it's almost built, at least the architectural part, there's still a little bit, and then the interior fit out part is still pending. But I think there's a lot of lessons learned from KFD. The successes, obviously, it was kind of like an architectural lab of architectural designs from postmodernism, modern Arabic architecture, deconstructivism, using different kind of technologies to build them, or new also materials that was used that haven't been used before. But also the lessons learned, talking from regulations, which has finally starting to happen to attract the talent, also having finance there, and also the importance of phasing to be in line with the finance available and the demand as well.
Okay. And again, quickly before, because we've got a couple, probably a minute left. I asked the question before, I think before you cut off, that you were in talks with Amaala and Diriyah Gate. What's the progression with that in the minute in terms of?
We're already on site with one of the projects within KFD. It's within the client is not KFD, but it is within the KFD development. We're about 50% completed, and it's designed by Zaha Hadid, so it's a very iconic project. In regards for the other projects, we're in talks with most of them. I think Diriyah Gate, we're not directly in talks with the client, but we are in talks with Faithful & Gould, which is one of the consultants on site. However, Amaala, PIF, we're actually tendering one of their iconic projects at the moment. Amaala, I've visited their office a number of times, met a number of their executives, and we talked about a number of projects. But as you can know, most of these projects are in either master plan stage or they're just starting their infrastructure. So it's early talks where we're just advising on some programs, sometimes budgets for the interior fit out packages when it will come. I think it will still take about 2 to 3 years for us to get involved, but we're enjoying that we're having these initial discussions early on. And there are some small tendering projects for mock-up rooms or their offices, etc.
Okay. And that is all we have time for. Thank you very much, Jonathan, Stephen, Brett, and it was good to get you finally in, Abdullah, to get your thoughts across. I thought it was a fascinating conversation about some of the world's biggest projects currently underway in Saudi Arabia. Absolute pleasure speaking with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Cheers, guys. Bye.
No problem at all. And that concludes day one of our conference. I hope everybody tuning in has enjoyed our event today, but we're only at the halfway point for our Leaders KSA Summit. Please join us tomorrow to hear from more of our exciting lineup, which will look into the future of construction in Saudi Arabia and exploring the rise in demand for design and modular construction in the kingdom. Thank you very much for attending, and we will see you all tomorrow.